Welcome to the Alcohol Reset, the podcast that helps you reset your habits, health, and relationship with alcohol without judgment or extremes. If you're looking to cut back, take a break, or just understand how drinking can affect your body and mind, you're in the right place. Each episode brings you science-backed insights on neuroscience, nutrition, and habit change to help you feel better, sleep deeper, and take control on your terms. I'm Mike Hardenbrook, best-selling author, neuroscience enthusiast, and habit change expert. I've helped thousands through my book and podcast to rethink their drinking, and now I'm here to help you do the same. Let's get started. I'm Mike Hardenbrook, the founder of Cloud9 and author of No Willpower Required, and I want you to think about something for a second. Have you ever looked back at something you said, maybe just a slightly off reaction or some minor decision you made, and thought, wait, why did I do that? And I mean, we aren't talking about giant dramatic life failures here, right? We aren't talking about blowing your life savings or quitting your job in a blaze of glory. We're talking about the small things, the really subtle things, or a decision that was just slightly off, a reaction to your partner that was maybe a little bit worse than it needed to be. It's the kind of stuff you genuinely don't notice in the moment, but then, hours later, you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling and it becomes painfully obvious. The really uncomfortable part of our exploration today is realizing that those small mistakes aren't random blips, they are actual patterns. What we are taking a look at today is how small, totally unnoticed shifts in your brain, triggered by everyday things like stress, poor sleep, or even just having a couple of drinks, quietly alter your decisions, your mood, and how you show up in the world. And they do it entirely without you realizing it. Now, I really want to challenge how you might be thinking about this, because we all love to believe that we're highly rational beings, right? Making conscious, deliberate choices all day long. But what if you aren't actually making the majority of your decisions? What if your brain is basically just running the show on autopilot? To understand this, we have to look at the biological imperative. Your brain is a massively energy-hungry organ. It is constantly, obsessively trying to conserve energy. So to do that, it creates shortcuts. Habits, default behaviors, pre-programmed responses to familiar situations. It's literally like putting your smartphone into battery-saving mode. You know how the screen dims, the background apps stop refreshing? The phone still works, sure, it reacts to your inputs, but it's not operating at peak performance. It's just trying to get you to the end of the day without shutting down. In this battery-saving mode, your brain doesn't stop to question small choices. It just goes with whatever reaction requires the least amount of computational power. You repeat patterns, even if those patterns are actively working against your best interests, simply because the pattern's already built. It's the path of least resistance. You respond faster, but you do not necessarily respond better. And those automatic patterns are heavily influenced by your immediate state, which brings us to a huge factor in this autopilot trap: your mood. We all know what it feels like to be in a bad mood, but mood isn't just a feeling. It acts as a literal filter through which all reality must pass before your brain can make sense of it. If your mood is even slightly off, let's say you're just a fraction more irritable, or maybe carrying a low-grade anxiety from work, that filter changes the actual data your brain receives. In real time, this means you automatically read things more negatively. An email from your boss that simply says, "Let's chat at 3 p.m. is suddenly read as a threat, instead of just a basic scheduling request. Your baseline of patience drops. You end up making decisions, snapping at a colleague, sending a passive-aggressive text that you normally wouldn't make. The catch that makes this whole system so insidious is that you usually don't notice the shift. You don't feel different enough to question your own behavior. In that moment, your sharp reaction feels entirely justified by the circumstances. You aren't questioning it because, to you, the other person is clearly being annoying. Your brain justifies the output because it doesn't realize the input filter is compromised. It just feels like you being you. One of the biggest things that compromises that filter is a lack of sleep. When your brain is tired, it doesn't just feel slow, it becomes imprecise. Mild sleep disruption, I mean not pulling an all-nighter, but just getting a little less quality sleep than you need, fundamentally impairs your executive functions. That means your decision-making, your emotional control, and impulse control are all degraded. Because these executive functions require high energy, conscious processing. A mildly sleep-deprived brain starts the day with a lower battery. It relies even more heavily on that autopilot mode. You start cutting corners. You react too quickly because inhibiting a reaction takes physical brain energy that you simply don't have. You miss subtle details in a conversation. And the danger is that it's not born of bad intentions. You aren't trying to be sloppy or careless. You were just suffering from worse execution because the hardware is tired. And because it's only a mild disruption, you don't connect the dots, right? You don't think, I'm being short with my kids because I woke up twice last night. You just think, my kids are being unusually frustrating today. which perfectly sets the stage for another major external trigger that sneaks up on us, and that's alcohol. Now, obviously, if you drink heavily, your decision-making in the moment is compromised. But the focus here isn't on the night of drinking. It's about what happens the next day. There is a delayed cognitive tax. Alcohol doesn't just affect you when it's in your bloodstream. Even moderate drinking, having a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, has a measurable impact the following day. Moderate drinking reduces your focus and clarity the next day. It increases your emotional reactivity, it lowers your patience, and crucially, it disrupts your sleep architecture. Even if you were in bed for 8 hours, alcohol prevents you from getting the deep, restorative recovery your brain actually needs, so it's a double whammy. You get the chemical after effects of the alcohol, plus the cognitive hit of mild sleep deprivation. The result: the next day, you say something slightly off. You miss an important detail in a meeting. You overreact to a minor inconvenience at the grocery store. You don't link your slight impatience at 2 p.m. on Wednesday to the 2 beers you had with dinner on Tuesday night. But these are the tiny, almost invisible mistakes that compound over time. When we put this all together, the autopilot, the mood filters, the sleep fog, the lingering effects of alcohol, we arrive at what is arguably the most terrifying part of this entire exploration. It's something called the normalization trap. This is where the psychology gets truly daunting. The human brain is designed to adapt to consistency. If something happens consistently, even if it's a very slight deviation from your old self, it becomes your new baseline. Your brain literally recalibrates and accepts this slightly worse functioning as the new normal. Let's say you're dealing with prolonged stress, or you haven't been sleeping well for a month. Initially, you might notice it. You might think, wow, I'm a bit more impatient lately. But then time passes. The pattern continues. And that thought quietly transforms into, this is just how I am. I'm just a short-tempered person. I'm just not a details person. I'm just naturally anxious. What started as a temporary state, caused by a temporary disruption, gets hardwired into your self-concept. Small, repeated changes eventually become your identity. You literally become a slightly worse version of yourself, and your brain convinces you that you've always been this way. Okay, I think I've successfully terrified everyone, myself included. But the good news is that you don't need an extreme life makeover to fix this. You don't need to quit your job or move to a monastery. You just need to interrupt the pattern. You need to throw a little wrench into the autopilot. The absolute most effective place to start is simply to pause. Just wait 2 to 3 seconds before responding, especially when you are feeling emotional or triggered. It sounds trivial, but biologically what you are doing is giving your prefrontal cortex, the logical conscious part of your brain, just enough time to catch up and override the automatic emotional reaction. That 2-second pause is the difference between snapping at someone and taking a breath. But pausing is only half the battle if your internal baseline is already compromised. You also have to build a quick internal diagnostic tool. Check your state. Ask yourself, am I tired right now? Am I stressed? Am I feeling slightly off? If the answer is yes, you can mentally flag your own reactions. You can say, okay, my filter is compromised today, so I shouldn't trust my initial negative reaction to this email. And as you start paying attention to this, you have to focus on the macro patterns, not the isolated incidents. Ignore the single bad reaction. Everyone has bad moments. What you need to look for are the repeated ones. Do you always snap at your partner right after you walk in the door from work? Do you always make careless mistakes on Thursday afternoons? You're looking for the structural flaws in your routine. Because if it happens once, it's a blip. If it happens every week, it's a pattern running on autopilot. To break those deeply ingrained patterns, you have to protect your recovery. You cannot outthink a tired brain. Prioritizing sleep, hydration, and nutrition aren't just wellness buzzwords. They are the fundamental requirements for maintaining mental clarity. They are how you recharge the battery so your brain doesn't have to force you into battery-saving mode in the first place. You can also support the brain directly. Research points to specific nutrients like vitamin B1 and NAC-N-acetylcysteine. These are known to help support brain energy and recovery, particularly if you're someone who drinks alcohol. They help process that delayed cognitive tax we talked about earlier, giving your biology the raw materials it needs to repair the daily wear and tear and clear the fog. It's all about giving your brain the best possible chance to keep your conscious mind in the driver's seat. So let's look back at the big picture. The ultimate takeaway here is pretty profound. Most of the things that shape the trajectory of your life, your relationships, your career, they aren't the massive cinematic decisions. You aren't standing at a dramatic crossroads every single day. The real crossroads are microscopic. They are the small decisions you make on a Tuesday morning, a slightly sharper tone, the slightly missed detail, a reaction that was just a fraction of a second too fast. Individually, any one of those moments means absolutely nothing, but over time, repeated daily, they are everything. The beauty of this is that the moment you start noticing these patterns is the exact moment you start changing them. Awareness breaks the autopilot. You can't change what you can't see, but once you know the system is running, you can finally reach over and take the wheel. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. The next time you find yourself snapping over a minor inconvenience or missing a completely obvious detail or just feeling a little bit off, I want you to take a beat. Pause for those 2 seconds and ask yourself a very simple question. Is this actually me acting right now, or is my autopilot just running on corrupted code? Thanks for joining me on this exploration today. I'll catch you next time. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you got something out of this, do me a quick favor, leave a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It helps keep the show going and would mean the world to me. Got ideas, comments, or questions? Shoot me an email at mike@trycloud9.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for extra support, check out Cloud9, makers of Daily Restore, a once-a-day supplement to support your body from alcohol's effects, and Rise and Unwind AM/PM, a 24-hour combo to curb cravings, balance mood, and improve sleep when taking a break. Go to trycloud9.com and use the code PODCAST to save 15% on your next order. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.